Hi, I'm Paul Green, and welcome to episode 2 of Martial Logic, um, the argument and self-defense weapons. Um, this is something that has kind of been a big thing with me over the years, and I've kind of went back and forth on it. Years ago, when I started developing a STAR method, which is an unarmed program for police departments, ran into a lot of resistance at first from um, pretty ignorant people, in my opinion, and I still believe that. Um, at one time, the law enforcement community had become so overly reliant on their weapons, like whether it be a gun, taser, pepper spray, or various others, stun guns and whatnot, that a lot of them didn't have a an unarmed program. Which I felt like was nuts. It just did not make an ounce of sense, and it still doesn't. But what I wanted to answer with this um, kind of Cliff's notes of a monologue that will be in the upcoming book Martial Logic is kind of a two prong. One, if you have self defense weapons, whether you be police or civilian or whatever, if you have a self defense weapon that you carry, do you still need unarmed training? And the second part of that is if you have unarmed training, does it still make sense to carry a weapon? And I know that sounds crazy, but there's actually a disparity in it. Some people believe you don't need one or the other, and both are wrong. Um, and we want to go into that and kind of discuss it. The simple fact is, regardless of whether you carry a gun, a taser, pepper spray, or a stun gun, any of it can fail. Um, you know, Guns jam, guns miss due to user error. Um, there was a real famous example. It was on one of these world's wildest, police videos or whatever. It's been all over the internet of this little bitty cop in Georgia. A lot of people have seen it, where he was trying to arrest this big guy that was a boxer, and and the guy was resisting arrest and started beating the crap out of him. He pulls out his gun. At one point, the gun jams. At another point, he actually shoots the guy, and the guy looks at him after being shot in the abdomen, point blank. I mean, directly, like a foot away, and is like, "Is that all you got? You're going to have to do better than that." Even a bullet just didn't phase him. Um, you see things with taser and those types of things all the time, where if somebody's wearing like a lot of denim, like a denim jacket or something, the prongs get caught on them, and they don't work like they should. And in a lot of your urban areas, you see kids and young kids and everything practice doing things like this, where they'll stand in one spot and like throw their arms up like this, and they're practicing for things like taser to break the wires. And of course, if they break the wires, you don't get the charge. There's people that just don't respond to them, like they should. When you look at pepper spray, when I was doing bouncing and stuff like that, I carried pepper spray for like 10 years. I never had it fail, not once. But at the same time, I work with people that have been in like detention centers and things like that, where they've had people in solitary that get sprayed all the time that don't have the same reaction to it. Um, it's not that they don't feel it, but they've been sprayed so many times that they're used to the burning sensation and they just don't react the same way. Um, but at the same time, you know, people get shot every day, and guns work great for self-defense. Um, you're going to find a lot of videos where taser worked a hell of a lot more than it failed. With pepper spray, you don't. When someone gets sprayed with pepper spray, the reactions tend to be they're not going to be the same as they would be for another person. Everyone's different. If you're expecting to spray someone with pepper spray and then fall back and scream I'm melting, like the witch in the Wizard of Oz or something, it's not going to happen. A lot of times people have higher expectations for these things that they really shouldn't have. Um, but the thing is if you're a police officer and you get the guy just doing this, and that's the only reaction that you get, it still buys you a second, to get control of an arm. If you're a civilian, it can still buy you a second to get away. If you go on Amazon and and read some of the comments on different types of pepper spray, whether it be Saber or Fox Labs or some of these others, a lot of people carry it when they walk. Go walking and stuff. Spray dogs with. And things like that, and it works great for what they use it. As we talked about in the last video, context and definition mean a lot. If you want to look at like situations with it though, these are weapons that you have to get to. A lot of times, in the civilian world, people carry them in their purse, and you got to have room to get it. And the world's filled with elevators, hallways, small rooms, and things like that, where you're not going to have that ability. Um, and with police officers, you have the situation where you're getting out of a car, you're talking to somebody, you're already within that reaction gap where you don't have room to get to that weapon if somebody attacks ballistically right off. Um, Sometimes they're bigger than you. Sometimes there's more physicality that you just can't overcome it. That's why in all of our police programs we have a section in it where you work for a reaction gap, because you're just not going to be able to control this guy, or whatever the case may be. So if you look at all the situations, even if you have a self-defense weapon, you still need, unarmed training. Unarmed training is very important, especially if you're a civilian. You want to be proactive about your self-defense, and you want to look at all the situations equally. Um, Unarmed training is important. You have to have it, because even if you have a weapon, and even if that weapon works, there's going to be play at times when you just cannot get to it. I wrote an article several years ago called Armed and Irrelevant. You can't shoot everybody. And going back to police work, every now and then, you'll come across a story where an officer had to shoot somebody. And every time that I read one of these, um, I can't help but think to myself, did this department have a defensive tactics program? And if they did, was it any good? Was somebody there pushing for it and making that a priority in training? Because obviously, if an officer's getting the crap beat out of them, they're not there. They're getting the shit beat out of them isn't part of their job description. And if sometimes they have to shoot somebody, and sometimes it's justified. But I can't help but think, if their defensive tactics program was better, even if they had one, would they have been in that situation where they had to pull that gun? And, would that kid still be alive? Or that person or attacker or whatever, however you want to look at it. Um, so, to answer that question, once again, even if you have a self-defense weapon, like I said, whether it be a taser, whether it be a gun, whether it be pepper spray, regardless of what it is, you still need unarmed training. That isn't going to handle all the situations that you could end up in. Now, to look at the other side of the argument, we know since that any weapon can fail due to user error, or sometimes a mechanical error. You get lemons just like buying a car. Um, we know that because of that, it's very important to have that backup. Now, let's look at it the other way. If you have a really good defensive, program, or self-defense or defensive tactics or whatever, do you still need is pepper spray and taser and all these other things, guns, whatever you want to put in there? Are all these things still viable? Is it still a pretty good idea to carry them in places where it's legal to do so? And the answer to that is yes, absolutely. Um, I teach an unarmed program, but I'll be the first person to tell you, if it's a self-defense situation, your life's in danger, I would much rather use a weapon than go hands-on any day of the week. Any day of the week. Because something we cover in our unarmed, which is why we make the transitions the focal point and why our unarmed program is so successful, is that we tell you straight up, there's no such thing as a martial arts technique, whether it be reality based or whatever, however you want to put it. There is no such thing as a technique that does not fail. Under some circumstance, there is no such thing as a technique that does not fail, that cannot be countered by somebody somewhere. Let me illustrate that point to you even more so. If Bruce Lee, Miyamoto Musashi, and I don't know, Sugar Ray Robinson or Rocky Marciano come back from the dead and they invented a tactic and brought it to your door and said, this is the tactic that you should teach. This is the ultimate tactic. Everyone should know this, and you should teach it. You could teach the hell out of it and be the best technique in the world. Now, on any given Saturday night, a drunk on Bourbon Street will beat that technique and never break a sweat doing it. That's a fact. That's a fact. There is no such thing as a tactic that is not beatable. There is no such thing as a weapon that works 100% of the time. Even people that train harder, train with higher intensity. Let's say you go to one of these schools that wears all the gear, and they gear up and they beat the crap out of each other. Now that training's better, don't get me wrong, but and they push, we teach real fighting here. Well, first of all, fighting's random. There's no such thing as real fighting. If you're in a fight, it's real. We covered that, in the last episode. I'm not going to rehash it. But at the same time, even if you're geared up, even though it's better training, and you should always pressure test and and all that kind of stuff, inside you still know this person's not really trying to kill you. All of the emotion isn't there. All of the panic, or it isn't there. The physicality's there, but all the other stuff isn't there. So, you may be looking at 70, 80%, but it's not 100% real. None of it is. It could be a situation where you're walking somewhere and you're not as aware as you needed to be. It could be something where the person's just so much bigger than you. They could be hopped up on drugs or something like that. There's a lot of things that could go on with it. But the simple fact is, once again, there is no such thing as a tactic that does not fail. In our police programs, we focus on the transitions and being proactive. And that's, like I said, that's why it is so successful, and that's why it works, because within that course, I'm talking about STAR method, the success or failure of what you're trying to do does not depend on the success or failure of any single technique within it. And like I said, we have a lot of success with that. We get a lot of good feedback from the street. Where officers have used this, and it's worked great, and it continues to do so. But it's a little short-sighted, and I can understand the anger and the frustration of a lot of self-defense instructors, because I felt it myself. When I got into this, the first time you talk to somebody and you hear the expression, "Well, I don't need to learn self-defense tactics. If I get in an altercation, I'll just shoot them." And you want to choke the shit out of that person for saying something so incredibly stupid. That Words can't describe how ignorant a statement like that is. But at the same time, there is no such thing as a tactic that works 100% of the time. If I've got a chance to stop something, or an opportunity to stop something 10 to 15 feet before it gets to me, that's always a better option than going hands on. It's always a better option. Once again, I'll use pepper spray for an example. If a guy just does this, bitch, I'm going to kill you, or whatever, the time that he's doing that and talking is time that you could be running. That's still successful right there. Um, with Taser, a lot of the models, and it may very well be on every model that they have, the civilian versions actually pop a longer charge. So if you shoot somebody with it and drop them, you can actually drop the taser and run while it's still shocking the other person. If you save your police report and send a copy of it to Taser, if you couldn't recover your Taser weapon, they'll replace it for free. It won't cost you a dime. So, make sure you have your unarmed training. Unarmed training is very important. But at the same time, if you have a chance to stop it early, you should do it. You should absolutely do it. You know, I mean, shooting somebody, I mean, that's a little bit harder to explain to the police than just tasering them. But, if it comes to it, it comes to it. But, you know, once again, if you have that opportunity, take it. And you can't have that opportunity if you don't have the weapon to use it. Like I said, it's a little short-sighted for people to be bashing these weapons. Because, like, once again, do weapons fail? Yes. Do all of your tactics work all the time, 100% of the time? Hell no. Then that's why, when you need you have the chance to use that weapon, you should take it. That's why I sell them. If I didn't believe in them, I wouldn't sell them. They wouldn't be on stonewalltactical.com if they didn't work, and do what they were supposed to do. At the same time, I want to mention something, to the people out there, watching this stuff. When you go to a self-defense course and they talk about, surviving an attack, okay, let's look at what that means. It means you didn't die, or it means you didn't get raped. That's all that means. It doesn't mean that you're still not injured. It doesn't mean that you won't have to miss work the next day. It doesn't mean that you won't be emotionally damaged. It doesn't mean that you won't lose a function, like you might lose an eye or you might have a bone broke or something like that. It just means you didn't die. That's it. That's all it can offer you. So that's really, that's it. That's all it offers. Yeah, you could, kick this person's ass or whatever and get out, and that's great. That's just like getting in a knife fight. You could get in a knife fight and not get cut. I've been in 4 of them. I was cut in 2. 2 of them I wasn't. But it goes back to the same thing. When people talk about, these weapons don't work. Well, no. If you look, at them, they work a hell of a lot more than they work. And they probably work at a much higher percentage than a lot of tactics work. A lot of unarmed tactics work. So, I would say if you're going to be proactive in your self-defense, you need an unarmed program. And if you can, it's not a bad idea to carry, taser or pepper spray or any of these others. And don't let anyone tell you different, because if they do, they have an agenda and they're just short-sighted. They get tunnel vision. I'm not mad at people for doing that, because I understand the frustration, because I have to deal with idiots every day. But unarmed training is incredibly important. But if you're in a high crime area, you know what, a taser does pretty good too. So for me, that's both sides of the argument. If you carry a weapon, you still need your unarmed training. In case that weapon fails. But if you have really good unarmed training, and you know you can carry some pepper spray or some taser or something like that, it's a good idea to do that too, because you know, look at the alternative: just survive it. Um, and that's really all I have to say on it. It's probably half as long as the last video, but you know, I believe that the information is just as valuable. You know, you're always going to have haters and things like that that are going to argue what you do, but that's okay. They can do that. Me, you know, I'm going to tell the truth. And as hard as it may be to swallow for some, that's the truth. So I thank you for your time, and we'll see you next week. Thanks.